Welcome to episode 49 of the Word of the Day. Listen, I haven't been as consistent as I would have liked to be, but today is episode 49, and today's Word of the Day is change. We're going to talk about the law of change, right? The inevitable law of change, right? I'm going to say the inevitable of change, the law of change, right? John F. Kennedy once said, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. That was a great statement. See, that statement isn't just a political philosophy. It is biblical truth wrapped in human observation. From the book of Genesis to the book of Revelation, the divine narrative unfolds through transformation. Darkness become light, chaos become cosmos, death becomes resurrection, right? So change, whether we embraced it or resisted, it's the pulse of life itself. It's the one law that no man can veto, no government can repeal, and no spirit can escape, right? So to deny change is to deny growth, and to deny growth is to deny life. So let's talk about some theological foundations, right? I believe that God is the author of change. That's what I believe, right? I believe that God is the author of change, right? The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1, it says, to everything there is a season and a time of every purpose under the heaven. This verse is not a poetic coincidence, right? It is divine legislation. Seasons exist because God designed creation to move with the rhythm, not stagnation, right? The sun rises and the sun sets. Tides advance and tides retreat, right? Leaves sprout and fall, all proclaiming that change is sacred. It is not secular, it's sacred, right? So even in the spiritual realm, transformation is God's signature. That's what I believe, right? Romans 12:2 declares that be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The Greek word for transformed is metamorpho, right? And that's the same root from which we derive metamorphosis. So I wanted to kind of clear that up. It means to change form, structure, and even essence, right? In other words, our spirit is not supposed to look like it did last year, last month, or even last week. So let's talk about some phases of change. I'm going to talk about, man, my hands look real light today. Let's talk about some phases of change, right? So the first phase that I want to discuss is the disturbance phase, right? This is when life shakes your foundation, right? God disrupts comfort and introduces growth, right? Think of Abraham, right? Being told to leave his homeland for a place he has never seen. Change begins with disturbance. Genesis 12:1, right? It says go from this country, your people and your father's household to a land I will show you, right? The second phase of the law of change is the discomfort phase. Now, this is one phase that messes a lot of us up. This phase really throws us a curveball, right? So the disturbance phase is growth rarely happens in comfort, right? Israel had to walk through the wilderness for 40 years to reach the promised land, right? Many of us abort our transformation because we mistake discomfort for disfavor. That's not true. Deuteronomy 8:2 says, the Lord your God led you these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, to test you. And then we got the dissection phase, right? God removes what no longer fits your next season. And this is where we get hung up. the dissection phase, the dissection phase, y'all know I got a speech impairment, it gets me sometimes. The dissection phase, God removes what no longer fits your next season. Friendships, habits, even mindsets. And once that happens, it removes that weight, right? Pruning is not punishment, it is preparation. And God is moving us. God is moving me in this season. I will not stay where I've been staying. I'm just not going to do that because the law of change has to take place. Let's go to John 15:2, right? Every branch that bears fruit, Yahweh prunes, right? That it may bear fruit in its season. And now we have the discovery phase. And this is where I'm at in life. The discovery phase. Once you endure the breaking, guess what happens, people? Clarity emerges. You begin to see purpose so plain. You get so much wisdom in waiting and destiny and detours. So you get wisdom in waiting and you get destiny and detours. And I'm on a detour right now. And a lot of y'all folks gonna see it in a few. I'm on a detour right now. And Isaiah 43:19 says, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not receive it? Do you not receive it? We cannot resist the law of change because the law of change doesn't need your permission to change. Everything changes. You get older, you get sicker, or you get healthier. Things change, right? Let's talk about the power of change, right? Change births innovation, transformation, and revelation, right? It is the language of process. Without change, Moses would have remained a fugitive instead of a deliverer, right? Without change, David would have remained a shepherd instead of a king. Without change, Saul would have remained a prosecutor instead of Paul, the apostle of grace. Come on, y'all. So change does not always need to feel divine, but it is always a design by the divine. Let me say that again. Yeah, I think I said that right. Change does not always feel divine, but it's always a design by the divine. God changes our circumstances to change our character. So let's talk about the dangers of not changing. Let's talk about the dangers of not changing, right? Stagnation, I call it spiritual decay. When something stops growing, it begins dying, right? Lot's wife looked back because she couldn't handle transition from a place of chaos and torment. She became a pillar of salt, frozen in the posture of her yesterday, right? The Pharisees, man, they missed everything that Yahushua was saying, Jesus was saying, because they refused to evolve beyond the letter of the law into the spirit of grace. So to resist change is to rebel against God's process of renewal. You cannot inhabit new promise with an old mindset. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskin. He said it in his word. So how do we handle change, right? So I'm going to give you guys some strategies that I studied for transformation, right? Some strategies that I studied for transformation. First of all, you got to surrender. Don't struggle. Stop trying to control what God has already ordained. The river of change will carry us further than the boat of comfort could ever carry us, right? We got to have the season. We got to be able to discern the season. There it is, a speech impairment, right? Ask God, not just why, but what are you revealing to me in this season? Every transition hides revelation in its turbulence, right? Release what's dead. Don't resurrect expired reconnections. Sometimes relationships were divine for a season, right? Not for a lifetime. Renew your mind daily. Feed your spirit with words and prayer. And a mind anchored, right? And the eternal is never wrecked by the temporal. Rejoice in the progress. Praise during the pruning season. Worship during the waiting. And gratitude will help you accelerate. So let me get to some closing reflections on the law of change, right? Change is not our enemy. It's our evolution in disguise. Let's think about the caterpillar. It never dies. It transforms. And so must we, right? Like I said, John F. Kennedy spoke some great words that the Bible had already declared. Change is the law of life. But remember, while change is right? Inevitable, transformation is intentional. One happened by time and one happened by choice. Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. One happens by time, one happens by choice. Don't fear the sifting of your season. Don't fear the shifting of your season. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Fear staying the same in a world that God designed to move. Sometimes I lose my train of thought, y'all. Because people start walking by and looking at me. They think I might be fussing with somebody. I don't know what they think. So here's my final word, right? If your world is changing, it's because God refuses to let you live beneath your potential, your ability, right? The pain you feel is not punishment. It is construction noise from your next level, for your next level. So this is what we got to do, people. We got to embrace the law of change and let our next vision be the one God had in mind all along. Right? So no matter what you think about me or who you believe I represent, listen, this is the word of the day, the law of change. Please keep God and Christ first in your life. Episode 49.